In the narrow alleys of Oke-ado, Ibadan, the sun rose like a golden promise, spilling warmth over cracked mud houses and dusty paths. Bukola Lima, 18, swept the courtyard with a broom of stiff palm fronds, her fingers calloused but steady. Mama Yatun's voice floated from the kitchen, sharp yet full of love. Bukola, finish that quickly. Breakfast will get cold. Bukola's sister, Adefolake, had already left for Lagos, chasing stories as a young journalist, leaving Bukola Lima to navigate the quiet weight of responsibility. She paused, inhaling the mingling scents of burning firewood and fresh cassava flour, imagining herself one day owning an agro store that would bring life to her small neighborhood. Her dreams were simple but fierce, rooted in patience, labor, and hope. Yet even in this calm morning, there was an unease in her chest, a whisper she could not yet name, hinting at winds of change that would sweep her life beyond the walls of Oke-ado. Mama Yatun poured tea, her hands steady despite years of labor. She had sewn clothes for women of Oke-ado for over 30 years, raising Bukola Lima and Adefolake alone after their father died of typhoid. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, never missed a flicker of worry in Bukola's face. "My child," she said, stirring the tea, "dreams are precious but men, strangers online, they can be cunning like foxes. Guard your heart." Bukola smiled softly, sipping the bitter liquid, dismissing her mother's warnings like morning mist that the sun would burn away. She had met Yakuubu Gambo online, a man with half Nigerian, half Cameroonian blood, whose messages were honeyed and gentle, carrying gifts and words that made her feel truly seen. Mama Yatun's lips pressed thin as she watched her daughter laugh at her phone, unaware that danger sometimes wore the face of charm and care. In the quiet kitchen, the smell of sewing thread and old wood mixed with worry, a subtle omen that would soon grow into a storm. Yakuubu's first message arrived at dawn, greeting Bukola Lima like an old friend. His words were soft, layered with poetry and promises. "Your dreams shine brighter than the sun, Bukola. I see you always." She felt a flutter she had never known, her heart daring to leap toward possibility. Over the days, he sent photos of distant mountains, rare books, and gifts she had never imagined receiving, weaving a delicate thread of trust between them. Bukola shared her dreams, her love for the soil, her hope to nurture life through agriculture. Yakuubu praised her, telling her she had the patience of the earth itself, and she believed it, every word. Nights in Oke-ado became a mixture of longing and joy. She whispered to the stars above that maybe love could arrive in letters, smiles, and quiet devotion, not only in marketplaces and streets. Yet, beneath the soft light of her small room, shadows lurked, the subtle, unnoticeable hints that not all beauty comes without a bite of danger. Weeks passed and Yakuubu proposed a training seminar for young business minds in Lagos. He sent an official-looking flyer, colorful and convincing. Bukola Lima's heart raced with excitement. This was the chance to learn, to grow, and perhaps finally step into the wider world. Mama Yatun, sensing unease, asked again, "Are you sure this is real, Bukola? Do not be too quick to trust." Bukola laughed, her youthful certainty a shield against her mother's caution. She imagined herself walking in a grand seminar hall, shaking hands, learning secrets of commerce that could transform her community. Little did she know the flyer was a trap, a map leading to chains and shadowed rooms. That night, under the silver gaze of the moon, Bukola packed her modest bag, unaware that the road she would walk tomorrow would carry her far from Oke-ado, into the heart of deceit and danger, where every step would demand courage she had yet to discover. The bus rumbled across the border, the Nigerian landscape melting into the lush greens of Cameroon. Bukola Lima's excitement was a shield against the faint gnawing of fear that began in her chest. She laughed with Malamajani, the fixer who promised safe passage, unaware that every smile was catalogued by eyes that belonged not to friends, but to predators. When she arrived in Gowa, Yakuubu greeted her with warmth, charm, and a smile that hid iron beneath velvet. At first, the room seemed welcoming, filled with gentle light and soft music, as if the world itself had paused to applaud her arrival. But the door clicked shut behind her, a sound heavier than any drum in Oke-ado, and the warmth turned to cold. Chains clinked against the floor as Yakuubu's voice, once gentle, revealed menace. Bukola Lima's heart, so full of trust and hope, was squeezed by fear, and the journey from dream to nightmare began, the first chapter of her courage yet to be tested. The room was smaller than Bukola Lima had imagined, windowless, smelling of damp wood and unwashed stone. Chains bit her wrists, cold metal pressing against her skin as Yakuubu's shadow stretched across the walls. He smiled, a mask of charm over the sharp cruelty she would soon learn to fear. "You should be grateful, Bukola," he whispered. Not everyone gets a chance to live with me. Her heart pounded, disbelief and terror clashing with the memory of his tender messages. Her mind raced. How could the man who wrote poetry and sent gifts now be the one locking her in darkness? The walls of the room seemed to shrink, echoing her panic. Outside, distant voices murmured in unfamiliar Cameroonian tongues, footsteps pacing, doors creaking. Bukola realized she was not alone. Other girls, their faces pale with the same fear, whispered her name. The world she had trusted had vanished, replaced by an unforgiving shadow. Yet, amid the terror, a spark of resolve flickered in her chest. She could not allow despair to take root. She must survive, observe, remember. Every detail, the guards' habits, Yakuubu's moods, the smells of the compound, became weapons in the making, and the seed of her courage began to grow. At night, the room's walls seemed to breathe with whispers of hope. Bukola Lima learned quickly that silence could be a shield. She shared quiet glances with Zuri, a younger girl whose wide eyes mirrored fear but also resilience. In whispers they exchanged names, fragments of home, and secret strategies for small freedoms, shifting chains, counting patrols, and marking time by the sun filtering through cracks in the ceiling. Bukola realized she had to be careful. Yakuubu watched constantly, and any slip could mean punishment. But there was a rhythm to the terror, a hidden pattern in Yakuubu's control. She began memorizing it. She learned the guards' rounds, the moments when Yakuubu's attention wavered, the scent of fear and opportunity in the compound. Her mind, once used only for books and business plans, now became a sharp instrument of survival. In the quiet, she promised herself that she would not just endure, she would escape, and when she did, she would make sure no other girl suffered like her. This silent determination became her shield, stronger than any chains, and it carried her through the long nights of fear, whispering that courage can grow in the darkest places. Days blurred into weeks. Food came in small, humiliating portions, water was scarce, and sleep was interrupted by Yakuubu's unpredictable rage. Bukola Lima's body ached, bruises blooming like dark flowers across her arms and legs. Yet, the hardest battles were not physical, they were the attacks on her spirit. Yakuubu whispered lies, calling her naive, unworthy, trying to convince her that she was trapped because she deserved it. Bukola clung to memories of oke-ado, Mama Yatun's laughter, the dusty streets, the smell of cassava and firewood. She whispered these names in the dark, stitching a tapestry of love and hope that Yakuubu could not tear. When she discovered she was pregnant, the shock almost broke her, a torrent of fear, anger, and despair. But even then her resolve hardened. Life inside her became a secret, a hidden flame of rebellion. She began to plan, not just to survive but to protect this new life, to ensure that her daughter would someday walk in sunlight, not chains. Every day of pain, every cruel word, only sharpened the edge of her determination. She was Bukola Lima, and she would not vanish quietly. Back in oke-ado, Mama Yatund wept quietly, her hands trembling over the worn edge of a sewing table. Weeks had passed with no word from Bukola Lima. Adefolake returned from Lagos, eyes blazing with determination. She would find her sister. Using her journalist skills, she traced Yakuubu's digital footprints, piecing together fragments of Instagram messages, suspicious emails, and social media breadcrumbs. Each revelation made her blood run cold. Yakuubu was not who he claimed to be. His real name, connections, and fraudulent operations painted a picture of a predator as cunning as he was cruel. Adefolake refused to panic. Panic was a luxury she could not afford. Every night, she plotted routes, memorized maps of Cameroon, and called contacts who could assist. Her courage, honed through years of investigative work, now became personal and urgent. She whispered to Mama Yatund that she would bring Bukola Lima home. No distance, no danger could stop her. And in the dark corners of her mind, she imagined her sister's face, eyes wide with fear, and it fueled a fire she could not name but would not extinguish. Disguised as a market trader, Adefolake left oke-ado under the cover of night, Malamajani guiding her across the dangerous terrain toward Cameroon. The roads were treacherous, lined with bandits, corrupt guards, and the unseen threat of Yakuubu's networks. She hid her heart behind practiced smiles, eyes scanning every passerby, ears alert to every whisper of danger. Each night she camped under acacia trees, listening to distant drums and the wind rustling leaves, imagining her sister's chains, feeling her pain as if it were her own. The journey tested every skill she had, forcing her to move like a shadow through unfamiliar lands, blending courage with caution. She learned to navigate mountains, rivers, and borders, never resting, never trusting too easily. And every step forward was a promise. Bukola Lima would be found. Even in the darkest hours, when exhaustion pressed like a heavy stone on her chest, the thought of her sister, innocent, enduring, brave, drove her onward, and the name Bukola Lima became both prayer and war cry in her heart. Gowa was a maze of narrow streets, bustling markets, and hushed whispers of danger. Adefolake moved like a shadow, her heart pounding with every step. She observed Yakuubu's compound from a distance, memorizing guards' routines, the creak of the gates, the moments when the sun fell across windows just so. Every detail mattered. She knew one mistake could cost her sister her life. In the market, she posed as a trader, weaving through crowds, hands brushing cloth and fruit to hide her tension. Yet, her mind was fixed on Bukola Lima, imagining her chained in a dark room, whispering her name in silence. Every heartbeat screamed urgency, and every glance at a passerby was a calculation. Friend, foe, or something in between. Gowa's heat pressed down, the smells of roasted meat, smoke, and wet earth mingling with fear. But Adefolake held her resolve like a shield. She had come this far, and she would not fail. Even in a city that felt alive with menace, her sister's life was a compass, guiding every careful, deliberate move she made. Night fell over the compound like a black curtain. Bukola Lima sat on the hard floor, her arms aching from chains, her eyes tracing the faint cracks where moonlight filtered in. She whispered prayers, her voice low but fierce, a talisman against despair. That night she heard it, a faint sound like leaves brushing against one another, too cautious to be wind. Someone was outside watching, waiting. Bukola's breath caught, fear and hope tangled in her chest. She remembered Adefolake's words from home, the courage she had seen in her sister's eyes over video calls. "I will find you, Bukola. Always." That memory became a shield. Outside, a shadow shifted among the trees, silent as a cat. Bukola's pulse raced, but she steeled herself. Whoever it was, they were her ally. That night, hope crept back through the cracks of her chains, mingling with fear and resolve, promising that the dark, though thick, would not last forever. Adefolake had learned every detail of the compound. The back gate left slightly ajar for deliveries, the guards' rotations, the quiet spots where no one looked. She moved swiftly, guided by instinct and knowledge, and slipped into the courtyard. From the shadows, she caught sight of Bukola Lima. Chains glinted faintly in the dim moonlight. Her heart froze and then surged. Her sister was real, alive, and in her reach. Bukola saw the shadow too, recognition sparking in her eyes. Adefolake whispered, "Bukola, it's me. I'm here. We're going home." Tears blurred vision and fear, and for a moment, nothing existed but their reunion. Bukola's chains felt heavier and lighter at the same time. Heavier from weeks of confinement, lighter from the realization that she was not alone. The sisters exchanged silent messages through glances, mapping the impossible escape in their minds. That night, fear and courage became one, binding them together stronger than any chain, as hope began to carve a path through the darkness. In a dark corner of the compound, Bukola Lima and Adefolake whispered plans, voices hushed against the walls. Every word was weighed carefully. A single mistake could alert Yakuubu. They learned from McKean, a quiet ally who had infiltrated the household as a worker, about the guards' weaknesses, the alarms, the windows that could be pried open. Zuri, the youngest girl, listened wide-eyed, clutching her knees. Fear threatened to overwhelm them, but strategy and trust held the sisters together. Maps of the compound were drawn in dirt, escape routes traced on scrap paper, timing rehearsed in whispers. Bukola's mind, sharpened by survival, worked alongside Adefolake's journalistic instincts. Every plan was layered, flexible, dangerous, but necessary. In those tense hours, the sisters became warriors in a silent war against cruelty, learning that courage was not the absence of fear but action in spite of it. And when the first faint light of dawn seeped through the cracks, they knew tonight would decide everything. Night fell again, heavy and silent. Guards drifted between shadows, lulled by the rhythm of the compound. Bukola Lima and Zuri, cloaked in darkness, followed Adefolake, moving with careful, quiet steps. Chains had been loosened by tools McKean had hidden, but every movement was a test of nerve. The moon painted the courtyard silver, illuminating a path to freedom that felt impossibly thin. Every rustle, every heartbeat threatened discovery, but courage drove them onward. Bukola's chest ached with fear, hope, and anticipation. For the first time in weeks, the wind touched her face freely, carrying scents of earth, grass, and possibility. The sisters whispered promises to each other: survive, escape, and reclaim life. Behind them, the house loomed like a dark memory, a prison of cruelty, but ahead lay the unknown, the first step into freedom. And in that step, Bukola Lima discovered the first true taste of power, the realization that even in chains the spirit can plan, fight and leap toward life. They moved quickly, hearts pounding, feet splashing through puddles from an earlier rain. Yakuubu's men were already alert, shouting into the night, their voices sharp, slicing through the air. Bukola Lima felt adrenaline surge through her veins, sharpening every sense. She clutched Zuri's hand, whispering instructions she barely understood herself. Run. Stay low. Don't look back. Adefolake led, eyes scanning the dark streets for patrols and barricades. Every alley, every wall, every market stall became both obstacle and shield. The sounds of pursuit grew closer, the metallic clink of boots, harsh whispers, the rattle of a gate swinging open. Bukola's breath burned in her lungs, fear and determination colliding. McKean's steady presence was a balm, his quiet courage giving them rhythm and focus. With each step, the night pressed harder, threatening to swallow them whole, but the sisters refused to falter. In that darkness, they discovered the true meaning of resilience. Movement, courage, and trust, even when every shadow promises doom. Dawn was hours away, and the river lay before them like a ribbon of silver under the moonlight. Its surface reflected the chaos of their flight, the splashes of adrenaline, and the silent prayers of freedom. Bukola Lima waded first, water biting at her ankles, cold and unforgiving, yet thrilling in its promise of escape. Zuri clutched her hand tightly, trembling but brave. Adefolake guided them across, every step a battle against the current, every glance over her shoulder a reminder that pursuit was relentless. McKean followed with supplies, his eyes never leaving the shadows where danger might strike. The river seemed endless, a test of endurance and courage. When they reached the other side, soaked and shivering, relief washed over them, fierce and raw. They had survived the first true trial of the night, the first physical barrier between captivity and freedom. Bukola's heart, though tired and sore, surged with triumph. She realized that courage, like water, could carve paths through the hardest of obstacles, if only one dared to move forward. After hours of cautious travel through dense bush and quiet paths, the trio reached the women's refuge in Ingandir. The building was modest but glowing with warmth and life, a sanctuary amid chaos. Women who had suffered like them welcomed Bukola Lima and Zuri with open arms, offering food, clean clothes, and quiet words of comfort. Tears streamed freely as the sisters embraced, the tension of weeks dissolving slowly. Bukola's body ached, bruises telling stories of pain, but the safe walls around her offered the first taste of peace in what felt like a lifetime. Adefolake breathed a sigh of relief, her mind already racing to ensure protection, medical care, and communication with the Nigerian embassy. In that refuge, the girls began to shed the shadows of captivity, replacing them with whispers of healing and hope. It was more than safety, it was a declaration. Survival was possible and life, though scarred, would continue. News of their arrival traveled fast. Mama Yatund, exhausted from weeks of sleepless worry, arrived at the refuge in Ingandir. The moment Bukola Lima saw her mother's face, tears and sobs overwhelmed both women, decades of love and fear compressed into a single embrace. The sisters clung to each other, Adefolake standing guard, eyes fierce and protective. Conversations flowed, relief, disbelief and gratitude mingling with stories of courage and survival. Bukola Lima, though still fragile, felt a strength she had never known, the realization that love and family were armor against even the darkest cruelty. Mama Yatund whispered words of forgiveness for worry, of pride in her daughter's resilience. And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of reunion and safe walls, Bukola Lima understood the true power of courage, hope, and the unbreakable bond of family. The first chapter of recovery had begun, yet the path toward justice, advocacy, and life after trauma was only just opening before them. Adefolake's calls to the Nigerian embassy carried urgency like thunder. Officials listened, brows furrowed, as she laid out evidence, photos, and digital trails proving Bukola Lima and Zuri's captivity. Time seemed to stretch, bureaucracy and caution slowing the heartbeat of urgency. But Adefolake's voice, fierce and unwavering, pierced through hesitation. "They are girls," she repeated, "innocent, vulnerable. Every hour counts." The embassy moved swiftly, coordinating with local authorities, confirming identities and arranging safe passage home. Bukola Lima, watching the flurry of paperwork, felt both fear and hope twist together inside her chest. She realized that survival was no longer just about escape, it was about justice, about reclaiming life not only for herself but for the girls who had not yet found freedom. With each call, each signature, each confirmation, the world began to align in their favor. And when the embassy confirmed repatriation, Bukola Lima whispered a prayer of thanks, imagining oke-ado's son on her face and Mama Yatun's arms waiting to catch her. The plane ride back to Nigeria was quiet, filled with whispered reassurances and stolen tears. Bukola Lima held Zuri's small hand, both girls exhausted, bruised, yet strangely alive with the thrill of survival. Adefolake sat beside them, vigilant, offering soft words and the occasional smile. As clouds drifted past the windows, Bukola's mind wandered back to Gowa. The chains, the fear, the stolen days, and a fire of determination ignited. She promised herself she would not be defined by trauma. Mama Yatund waited at the airport, eyes scanning every face, hands trembling with worry. When Bukola Lima emerged, trembling yet tall, the mother-daughter embrace was fierce, unyielding, and life-affirming. Tears, laughter, and sobs collided, carrying months of fear, pain, and longing into one monumental release. In that moment, the streets of oke-ado seemed brighter, the air lighter, and the world itself seemed to bow in acknowledgement of their survival. Adefolake's investigations did not stop with safe return. With meticulous evidence and digital trails, she worked with authorities to ensure yakuubu gambo faced justice. Raids were coordinated, victims located, and chains of abuse unraveled. The news of yakuubu's capture spread like fire through whispers and social media, a predator unmasked by relentless courage. Bukola Lima watched from home, bruises still visible but spirit rekindled, as reporters and officials took statements, documented survivor stories, and closed the chapter on years of cruelty. Each arrest, each rescue felt like a victory not only for herself but for every girl still trapped in silence. The emotional weight of seeing justice carried out was immense. Fear transformed into empowerment, trauma into action, and grief into collective resolve. Inspired by the ordeal, Adefolake established the Voices Beyond Borders Foundation, a sanctuary for survivors of human trafficking. Bukola Lima, now safely home, joined in storytelling and advocacy, her experiences lending authenticity and power to the mission. Safe houses were built, rescue operations planned, and awareness campaigns launched across towns and villages. Bukola Lima became a living testament to resilience, speaking at community gatherings, schools, and radio programs. Her story sparked conversations that had once been whispered, shedding light on shadows long ignored. Every survivor welcomed into the foundation carried with them hope, courage, and the quiet fire of resistance. And every day Bukola Lima's own courage grew, fueled by purpose, justice, and the unbreakable bond of family. Months passed and Bukola Lima gave birth to her daughter, Hawa, a living symbol of survival and renewal. Holding her small, warm body against her chest, she marveled at life's stubborn persistence even after darkness. Mama Yatun's tears flowed freely, washing over the years of fear and despair. Adefolake watched with pride and relief, the sisters' bond stronger than ever. The home in oke-ado echoed with laughter, small feet pattering across dusty floors, and the scent of food and firewood filling every corner. Bukola Lima's bruises faded, but her spirit was forever strengthened by the journey she had endured. Hawa became a constant reminder that courage, love, and hope can create light even from the deepest shadows. And as Bukola Lima gazed into her daughter's eyes, she understood that survival was not just about enduring, it was about living, thriving, and inspiring others to do the same. Back in oke-ado, Bukola Lima began her own small agro-store, a dream she had carried through darkness into light. Every seed she planted became a symbol of survival, each sprouting leaf a reminder that life continues even after despair. The community gathered around, curious at first, then inspired, seeing a young woman who had endured chains and violence yet now nurtured life. Her story, shared carefully and with courage, encouraged neighbors to confront injustices and protect their own. Bukola Lima worked alongside her mother and sister, laughter and chatter filling the small courtyard, blending with the smells of cassava and fresh earth. Through this labor she healed physically and emotionally, turning trauma into purpose. Each customer, each conversation, became a reminder that even in suffering, one can cultivate hope, growth, and renewal. Her life was no longer just survival, it was creation, resilience, and the courage to inspire others to stand tall against darkness. Makind, the ally who had risked everything to help Bukola Lima escape, became a quiet pillar of the family. His gentle humor, unwavering presence, and steadfast courage provided comfort in the aftermath of trauma. He assisted with the store, offered guidance to Bukola Lima, and shared small, tender moments that reminded her of the kindness still present in the world. Over time, a bond deeper than friendship formed between him and Adefolake, rooted in shared courage, respect, and the knowledge that they had faced darkness together and survived. Bukola Lima observed this quietly, grateful for the network of trust and love that had emerged from the shadows of captivity. Their home, once silent and fearful, now echoed with warmth, laughter, and the subtle strength of hearts united in healing and purpose.